I'm Rick Harp. This is your APTN News Brief for Thursday, February 29th. We begin in the Northwest Territories, where a staggering 98% of kids in care are Indigenous, and with many of their parents naturally eager to see their return, Charlotte Moore-Jacobs brings us this update on one mother still fighting to regain custody of her children 2 years after their apprehension.
This is the suit her son would have worn to church if Child and Family Services had agreed to a public outing for a Clicho mother desperate to get her kids back. APTN cannot identify her due to privacy laws, but she wants to speak out. Her 3 children have been in care since January 2022, apprehended because parents struggled with addictions. But by the spring of 2023, they were on track to family reunification. In July, however, she says a caseworker launched an investigation after her youngest son fell in the home.
It's heartbreaking, we were so happy we're going to have our kids home, our routine's going to come back, we're going to stay with our children.
She has never been interviewed or charged by police for these allegations and is back to square one with only office visitations. There's nearly a dozen support letters from family and friends for them to regain custody of their kids.
And they are putting a lot of efforts in creating a safe environment for their children.
APTN first spoke with her in 2022 when her son was being abused in care, and it took a doctor advocating on their behalf for Child and Family Services to finally remove the son from the abuser. Fast forward, her requests still fall on deaf ears. The mother was concerned for her eldest daughter's well-being, living at Home Base, a Yellowknife group home. She asked CFS to place her in the care of an auntie. Before that could happen, the daughter spent the night in the hospital for alcohol poisoning.
She didn't want to approve it, that they're going to need criminal records check. And I said, my sister's a teacher, and my brother-in-law's an our officer. They both obviously have no criminal records to be in this position.
Home Base in Yellowknife serves anywhere from 50 to 60 kids a day in their youth dorms and emergency shelter. Up against funding and staffing challenges, the space provides programming and supervision from 8 p.m. until noon. The executive director of Home Base, Tammy Roberts, has been doing this work for decades, with 28 years of experience as a foster parent, caring for over 250 kids.
Youth that utilize Home Base have been through a lot of the foster homes already, so they've exhausted that. But then also I don't feel that a home is right for everyone. Some of our youth are really strongly connected to family. Whether or not they can live with family or family can care for them is a different story. But to them, that would alienate family. And so a group setting works better for them.
Roberts says N.W.T. foster parents desperately need more trauma-informed training before taking in youth who they have no bond with and who have been shuffled around within the system. This note, written by a doctor about her eldest daughter, demands Child and Family Services take the mother's request seriously, as the daughter has expressed a desire to go to treatment. But months have passed. Even her advocates encourage her to play by Child and Family Services rules.
Play it nice and just, do what you have to do to get your kids back, but fighting with them is not going to get you anywhere.
And that's what she'll do. Continue to fight.
In the waiting room, and I see people that are was in the same boat as me. The first time I sat in that waiting room, confused, then I would just I know what they're going through. And I said, this is what you need to do. Because they're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you need to get a lawyer. If you sign this plan of care, they're going to tell you they're going to apprehend your kids.
Indigenous people make up 57% of the N.W.T. population, but represent over 98% of kids in care. The territorial government's latest CFS strategy plan sets out targets to meet this year, including increasing cultural training for child welfare workers, increasing financial compensation for foster parents, and sharing more information about Child Family Services cases with Indigenous governments. Charlotte Moore-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
To New Westminster, BC, where a comedy troupe whose T-shirts feature serial killer Robert Pickton will no longer be allowed to perform at a club next month. This after venue organizers initially said they had no plans to cancel the show, saying it, quote, values and supports freedom of expression in comedy, unquote. They then changed their mind following widespread outrage over the shirts. Lorelei Williams is an advocate for murdered and missing Indigenous people.
Yes, I'm grateful that they're canceling it. It's a step. The words that they used weren't that great. They said something about causing the community discomfort. It's like, no, you cause us physical harm, pain, and heartache.
A group of environmentalists were in Ottawa Wednesday, calling for a total ban on per- and polyfluorinated substances, also known as PFAS. Nicknamed forever chemicals, Canada currently bans some but not all PFAS. They can be found in a number of products, including cosmetics, cleaning solutions, and food packaging material. They've been linked to liver and kidney disease, as well as cancer. Lucy Gray is a public health researcher based out of Nunavik in Quebec. She says Inuit living in northern Canada are particularly vulnerable to PFAS.
And research has proven that we have much higher levels than the southern Canadian population. And as mentioned, our unborn children are born with PFAS already in their bodies. We don't see any benefits from these, but we are carrying a huge risk.
And finally, the Yukon government is investing $5 million into an affordable housing development, the territory's largest to date. The Winter Crossing housing project in Whitehorse's Whistleblend neighborhood will feature 105 subsidized units to be owned and operated by Datagai Development Corporation. It's the economic arm of the Tonquanshan Council, a First Nation based in Whitehorse. Yukon Housing Corporation will lease 75 of the units for 20 years. Officials say there will likely be options for the other 30 units to go to Ton citizens when construction is completed in 2026. Deputy Chief Christina Kane says the development will help with the territory's housing crisis.
This 105-unit development will also make history as the largest affordable housing development in Yukon's history. What's most important is this will continue the trend to provide safe homes for young adults, families, and seniors who want and deserve a safe place to call home.
And that's your APTN News Brief for Thursday, February 29th. I'm Rick Harp.